this episode of Dirt Cheap Daily. Daily.
Okay, I think about good for now.
That is stinky stuff.
Is it? I can't smell anything. It should be. It's a chemical reaction. I'm just working.
Cool.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. So here we are. Subframe is painted and bolted back in, and I have the diff bolted up, but it's freaking low. Like, way low. So there's the control arm, roughly at ride height or a little bit compressed. And there's the diff, and it's way lower. There's the control arm at full droop, and the diff is still lower. So, I'm kind of in a predicament where I could make it work and probably end up blowing the diff by dragging it on the ground. Or I can take the time and do it right and lift my diff mounts up an inch, because they're just tacked right now, at least the rear ones. I can lift those up an inch, and then the box that I made for the front diff mount, I can section it and take out an inch. And I really don't want to do that, but that's what we're going to do. More so, I'm just really wanting this to be like a forever car. At least the rear diff and the trans mount that I make up. And I want it done right. In the past, I would have just lived with this and kept going, but this build I'm really trying to do the right way. Because that's what you do when you're stepping up the game. Even when it sets you back. Hopefully this is only going to take me a day to fix. We'll see.
So, what are your thoughts for raising the diff so it doesn't sit so low?
I need to cut those tacks off and then basically just lift the diff up or slide those down and tack them again. The issue with that is that over on this side they'll start hitting the diff case again, and so I'll need to notch those depending on how much I want to lift it. And I want to do, I'm thinking at least an inch, maybe an inch and a half or inch and a quarter. And so I'm probably gonna have to notch those a little bit. To do the front mount, it just will need section because I boxed this whole thing in and it's welded from the inside. It was super strong, and now I'm gonna have to cut it all apart, section it, and take out basically the same section width as distance or length that I'm dropping these horn mounts or rear mounts.
How long do you think it's gonna take?
I would really like to be able to get it tacked together tonight and get it back in the car and see if that's gonna be enough. Otherwise, I gotta rethink some major things, which I don't want to do. I don't want to do any other rear diff mount setup. I want to use this style, I'm limited though on how far I can actually raise the diff because of this style I'm using and the rear cover I'm using. If I used a different rear cover, I'd be able to lift it higher. And I guess we'll have to see. I'll try this and get it as high as I can. And if it's not high enough, I will think about it and I'll start building the knuckles. Because I need to start on building the knuckles. Another thing that's a really big bummer, I don't know if it's the bearings. I'm hoping it's just the seal on the pinion. So the seal back here is started leaking oil. And so before I get this in the car for the last time, I need to either put in new bearings, hopefully not, or put in a new seal. Gonna rework these, and again, it's just a bunch of finicky stuff, so I'll just give you an update when I get there.
Trial and error.
Yep. It's really a gigantic diff. Like, an R200, while being slightly more prone to failure than the 8.8, would be a whole lot easier to package because it's so much smaller. But that's okay. So many ways to do the same thing, so just figuring it out as I go.
Well, Rosie just threw up on me, so.
Cool, that means it's over.
How's it going?
Alright. Good.
What you working on?
Diff mount number 3. Oh yeah.
So how's this one different?
This one's good. This is the final one. Unless something catastrophic happens when I go and try and mount it. I guess. So the last one, the diff was mounted about 2 inches lower than it is right now. And it was super crazy low. I'd probably smash it and blow it up if I ever dirt dropped on a corner. So, I raised it up and got it back together yesterday, all in one day. And when I finished and was like stepping back and looking at it, I'd realized that I'd rushed it basically. I hadn't centered, or at least leveled out, my subframe, and so my subframe was kind of wonky. And so when I mounted the diff, it was crooked, which probably wouldn't have mattered too much, but it wasn't centered either, and basically I just rushed it and it was garbage. And then I realized that it wasn't even lifted any farther than I'd had it before, more than like half an inch. And so this time, I went ahead to get it high enough. I mounted it above the subframe.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. I didn't think I had that much space before. This is all getting chopped off. But right here, I'm still going to run my Outback spacers because there's a bunch of fuel stuff in the way. Even if I tried to mount the diff without these spacers yesterday, and there was stuff in the way, and so I stuck the spacers back in. So I'm going to have to run the spacers no matter what, which gives me that much space that I have to work with. So I went ahead and lifted it that much. And so behind here, I guess you can see, so I welded a plate to the subframe, just tacked it on, and then
This one looks higher than this one.
It is.
Oh, it's supposed to be like that?
Yep. So these are just arbitrarily mounted, basically, and that's based on these horns. So I had the horns, and I positioned the horns where I wanted them to be. These mounts. Jeez, geese. Go back to Canada. So I had these horns just tacked onto this plate, which is bolted to the diff. And so then I basically just drilled holes in this plate. Thing moves a little bit. Oh, on both of them though, so it's no worries. The disc just needs to go down a little bit so those can fit in. But basically, I had it all just bolted together, and then I just welded everything. Inside of here, under these plates, I have DOM steel tube that is the same diameter as the bolt. And so it'll fit perfectly. And I'm just going to cut these off flush with this plate.
Oh, okay.
And then when I mount it, these bolts will be on the inside of the horns. And then to be able to mount this, you'll just shove it up underneath and use these studs to get it in through the DOM pipe.
Gotcha.
And then I have big giant bolts to go on the end of these with nylon lock nuts. So it'll sit like that, but flush against here.
Cool.
And then I just went ahead and welded braces over the top of the DOM. The DOM is welded to the subframe underneath there as well. And then I welded these tabs over the top of it just to have more connecting tissue because that's what's holding up the diff. It doesn't really need a whole ton because it's like the pressure of the diff is going down, and so it's not like it's going to lift off because there's gravity, so it's almost always going to be
pulling down.
And so with those welded up, I'm going to just kind of clean things up, cut those flush again, and then for this big piece I'm going to just like make a crease with the cutoff wheel and then just bend this over the top, and that'll give the horns some extra rigidity, and this whole piece will be pretty rigid because it'll be a bent piece of steel, and so that's what makes things rigid basically, is bends. And then I'll weld it from the underside and it'll be super strong and it'll hold up the diff. And so right now I was gonna just section the box that I made for the front mount, but sectioning it didn't work because I wasn't sure exactly how far up I was gonna move it, and so I just ended up cutting out the whole box and redoing it. So right now I'm just redoing it. So I have this guy that's gonna go right in there. And that one probably actually isn't gonna work, but it'll get
something like that.
Yeah, that'll all get boxed in like it was before. This guy's through that one. That's why I'm not having any luck with it. Anyway, so that'll all get boxed in and be strong, and that'll hold the front of the diff up. And then, so this is a differential out of an 04 Explorer. In 06 or 07, they did a dual front mount. So they had one of these horns on the other side as well, and so it's like extra strong. And so in the future, if I do want to get a double horned, an 06 diff, which is probably a good idea, just so it's stronger, I can do this boxing on the other side with no problems. Or I can just bolt it in with no boxing and it'll still bolt in just on one side. Which is kind of stupid and shoddy, but bolt on.
It looks so nice after you painted it.
Yeah, it was really rusty. The truck bed liner is, I'm crossing my fingers, gonna hold up pretty well. You gotta obviously do it all again on all the places that I've scuffed it off to be able to weld, but yeah, it should be good. I don't want to limit myself to not being able to drive this in winter.
Especially in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Where?
Obviously, I won't be driving in the snow. I might, but not like daily driving it in the snow. But even on the days where it's not snowy and the roads are clear, they're still covered in salt. And so I'd like to be able to drive it and not worry too much about it rotting out. Because the subframe, since I'm doing so much work to the subframe, I want to be able to make sure it lasts. So yeah, I'm hopefully going to get all this tacked together tonight. I'll pull the diff off, fully weld my diff mount and finish it, and then fully weld the box and the rest of the stuff and get it all cleaned up so I can get it back in the car and start on the knuckles.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Nice progress.
Yeah, it's good progress. It's a bummer I had to do it again, but at the same time, like, way good. Like, I feel like I almost wasted this week because I'm having to redo the same thing I did last week. But last week, it took me the same amount of time. Well, it took me a whole week to figure out how to do it, and then it didn't work out. And like, I did this in a day. And so, learning curve.
Yeah.
I totally know how to do it and what, well, not totally. I know enough how to do it and make it work. It's good. Anyway.
That's a wrap for today.
Yep.